Hello and welcome to Coop's Corner. I'm your host, Cooper Petagna, college football analyst, and I'm excited because college football, guess what? It's never dormant. It's never boring. Week 2, everybody going about their business, and guess what? We got number 13 Florida falling to the South Florida Bulls. All of a sudden, you look at Alex Golesh and South Florida knock off Boise State college football playoff team just a year ago in week 1 down in Tampa. Week 2, Gainesville, big victory there in the swamp. Week 3, number 5 Miami on tap. So we're looking at South Florida that could have the best resume in college football potentially through 3 weeks of the college football season. Don't tell me it's just another weekend in college football, because it never is. It's never just one of those weekends that you always expect when you're looking through the schedule. It's not how life works. We got a great show for you today, and I'm fired up to bring it to you. But first, I'm going to remind you, make sure to like and subscribe. You can find me right here on the Cooper Petagna YouTube channel. You can also find me wherever you find your podcasts. Excited about that. Spotify, Apple included. Make sure to leave a rating. Make sure to leave a comment. Appreciate you guys who've been hanging out, especially on the YouTube channel. Been putting out a lot of great content. Myself, my producer. Instead of calling him a producer, instead of outing his name, just going to call him Coach. Coach has been doing a phenomenal job, so we're really excited about Coach, and we're really excited about today's episode because we got good, bad, ugly. We're also going to preview some matchups next week, week 3. And if you're a fan of the Aggies, if you're a fan of the Fighting Irish, LSU, Florida, and we also got Tennessee, Georgia. That's quite a big matchup as well. We'll talk all those, get into little player personnel, some matchups maybe that I'm looking out for in those games. But first, I want to start with the dude stamp. And if you follow us on social media, Instagram, TikTok, X, you know what a dude stamp is. If not, let me read it out to you, okay? A dude stamp is something that I came up with last week. And I just think to myself often when I'm watching tape, hey, that guy's a dude. Not a guy, a dude. And a dude's different than a guy. You want to be a dude. And last week's first dude stamp went to Jaren Kiave Sangapulatele from Eva Beach, Hawaii. And we didn't talk about him here on this show, but the former 5-star was lighting it up against Oregon State. Went for 250, and he looked like it was just another day slinging the rock on the islands. Big kid, 6'3", 225 pounds, left-handed. If you haven't checked him out, do so. Going to be one of those future faces of college football that could be here before we know it. Really, really dynamic prospect. Crossbreed. I've talked about Michael Penix, I'm sure is a name that will come up. Tua Tagovailoa, just because of the twitch in the pocket. I get the stature's not the same, but the way they're able to extend plays. He's fun. Anyway, I say all that to set the table for this week's Dude of the Week. And a guy that I've been excited to talk about for quite some time, that's Missouri's quarterback, Bo Pribula. This guy's fun, man. And when they picked him up in the transfer portal over the offseason, I thought to myself, not even over the offseason. That happened in the middle of the playoffs for the SMU game. Not sure if you guys remember that, but I thought, wow, what an addition for Eli Drinkwitz. And Eli Drinkwitz has done a phenomenal job at Mizzou from a roster building standpoint. They get better and better and better each year. This guy, to me, just a fit. Backed up Drew Aller at Penn State, more of a wrinkle type of gadget guy in that Andy Kotelnicki offense. From York, Pennsylvania. What does he do? Well, he steps in to a big scene and big shoes following Brady Cook. And Missouri's got Kansas at home, renewed rivalry, week 2. Mizzou needed all of Bo Pribula. Tigers win that game 42-31. 30 of 39, completed 76% of his passes for 334 yards, 3 touchdowns. Bo Pribula. You're officially dude stamped. Congratulations, Bo Pribula, our number 12 quarterback over at 24/7 Sports. This is not CBS affiliated, by the way. This is me doing my own thing. But transfer portal rankings, I know a guy that does them over there. He liked Bo Pribula a lot. All right, it's time for good, bad, ugly. I'll tell you what, man. Can you talk about the good of college football without talking about John Napier? You want to talk about changing the perception of your program in a must-win year for Brent Venables. This is the value of the transfer portal. We've seen this time and time again. Saw it a couple years ago with Oregon and Bo Nix. Saw it a few years ago with Jaden Daniels and LSU. Sam Leavitt in Arizona State. The list is long. Being able to get a transcendent talent like a guy like John Napier for a program that's still trying to navigate into a new conference in the SEC. It's like quick match. And man, he was fun against Michigan in that Wink Martindale defense. Oklahoma ranked number 18 in the country going into that game. Michigan ranked number 15. Sooners knock them off 24-13. And John Napier, 21-34, 1 touchdown, 1 INT, 270 yards, 74 yards rushing, the transfer from Washington State. There are a lot of expectations going into the season for Napier. The hype really kind of started to build over the summer. We talked about him a lot during the portal season. And this is a guy that's just so dynamic with what he can do with his arm and what he can do with his legs. And I heard Todd McShay kind of breaking him down a little bit earlier today, saying that he reminded him a little bit of Baker Mayfield as a passer and a little bit of Kyler Murray as a runner. So if you didn't watch this game on Saturday night, primetime on ABC, you're probably thinking to yourself, wow, that sounds like a pretty good combination. And he's a fun guy to watch. He's a little bit of a cowboy, I would say. And I think what's interesting about him is not only the conversation that surrounds him from a collegiate standpoint and how high does he elevate Oklahoma's ceiling, but really the chatter that will pick up, and I want to get ahead of this, not narrative, but just this conversation, is how do teams view him as a pro prospect? And you think about John Napier, you think about his stature, 6'1", 225 pounds, quick twitch, explosive in terms of his ability as a runner, his short area quickness, his change of direction, really just his patience, his feel, and his one-cut plant and drive and the acceleration. Pretty special. And then as a passer, explosive arm. I mean, we saw it a couple times last night. Can get the ball out off platform, very comfortable on the run, obviously can improvise. But the throw that he made to Isaiah Petagna on the run, had to avoid pressure, broke out of the pocket. That was special. And you saw a little bit of the other side as well. You saw the interception, sailed high, trying to hit a receiver, intermediate, deep. Another one should have been picked. Oklahoma receiver made a heck of a play, knocked that ball to the ground. But he's got stuff that you can't teach. Like we talked about, like how does Oklahoma offensively specifically get their swag back under Brent Venables, where you had to go back to the Lincoln Riley days and you had to look at guys like Caleb Williams, Spencer Rattler, Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield. The list goes on and on. Really, really special list of quarterbacks that have come through Norman. And this guy steps into the spotlight against Michigan. Third ever time Oklahoma's ever played Michigan. with all the weight and the expectations, and he delivered. And it just looked like another day at the ballpark for him. And that's a big development because Oklahoma, they got a lot of talent defensively as well. Brent Venables said it at halftime. He loved the way they were knocking paint off helmets. That was a physical team. And they got some pieces defensively. But offensively, we knew what Napier was capable of. They're still trying to figure out their running game. Who's going to be the guy? Is it going to be Javonte Barnes? Is it going to be Jay Knott, who they brought over from Cal? Can they get Taylor Tatum going a little bit? They pieced it together on the receiving core. Deion Burks, explosive. Nice budding relationship between him and his quarterback taking place. So they got some pieces. But Oklahoma all of a sudden feels like a factor. How much of a factor? I don't know. But if you're a team that has to play Oklahoma, that's not a game that I don't think anybody's particularly excited for as an opponent. And you look at OU's schedule, it sets up nice, man. You have Temple on the road. You have a top 25 Auburn team at home. Then you have Kent State before the Red River rivalry on October 11th. And then that second half of that schedule is brutal. At South Carolina, Ole Miss at home, at Tennessee, at Alabama, Missouri, LSU at home. So just as a football fan, what's going to be really fun here in the next couple of weeks, really starting with Auburn, you're going to see Napier really get tested with some athletic defenses. And really Texas, October 11th is that's the matchup that I'm excited about. And I think every NFL scout from a Napier standpoint is looking at that game. So Oklahoma, they got the right guy leading them. John Napier, he's a stud. In terms of the NFL ceiling, every time I think somebody's going to run away with this race, I watch another week of football, and it really kind of throws some cold water on who I think could be QB1 in the NFL draft. Whether it's Garrett Nussmeier, whether it's Lenore Sellers, whether it's Drew Aller. I'm not going to mention Cade Klubnik in that conversation. And then you just have this guy hanging around, going to play so many big games. And for him as a prospect, great. I mean, you're going to see him good on good for the rest of the year after that Texas game. So Oklahoma, certified dude, and John Napier, I would give him the reward, but I think everybody was talking about him already. Coach? Let's talk some Bryce Underwood. Bryce Underwood, the number one recruit 2025 on the other side for Michigan. We saw what he could do week 1 against New Mexico. Nice debut. And if you want to see some things just in terms of the physical attributes of why he was ranked the number 1 player in the country, go watch that New Mexico game. Now, this game, a little bit different for Bryce Underwood. Going up against, obviously, one of the better defensive coordinators in the country, Brent Venables, a guy that can give you a lot of different looks, very talented, athletic, fast defense. And Michigan really wanted to hang their hat on the run. And in the first half, I thought, okay, they didn't really let him cut it loose. And then you saw the uneven play from the quarterback position in the second half that said, all right, maybe I understand it a little bit. That being said, Bryce Underwood is going to continue to progress week in and week out, and he seems very comfortable on the move. And we're only 2 weeks into this relationship together, me as a podcast host, you as a listener. But I continue to say this about quarterbacks that have the ability to run, especially young ones. I'd like to see Michigan, Sharon Moore, Chip Lindsey kind of lean on that a little bit more. And we saw that more as a senior at Belleville for Bryce Underwood than we did in previous years. And I think it just takes a little bit of pressure off of him. It takes a little pressure off your run game and Justice Haynes and Jordan Marshall. And the arm is still getting there. Can make every throw on the field, but in terms of seeing it, it's what you would expect a quarterback of his age in that environment. The other thing, it didn't seem too big. You saw a heated interaction between him and Justice Haynes on the sideline. I think people had mixed opinions on that. I like it. I don't know the context of it, but I don't have an issue with it. He's competitive. He wants to win. Big-time environment in a big-time game for his school that he's representing on the road in the SEC. So I think if you're a Michigan fan, you're coming out of this game for Bryce Underwood, there's a lot there that you saw that he can take as a foundational building block and learn from and grow. The other part about this is the point that I want to make. If you're Michigan in this situation, or if you're a team that's going to heavily invest in the quarterback position out of high school, I see it pretty similar to the way that I see the philosophy of taking a running back in the first round of the NFL draft. And I've heard a lot of people in personnel circles really talk about this topic specifically. It only makes sense if you feel like you have a team that can compete for a national championship within that window of when you have that player. So for Michigan, it's 3 to 4 years. But this is one of those years. And Michigan, defensively, is good enough to compete for a national championship. Offensively, yet to be determined. Obviously not there right now. But what do you have around this guy? Especially at the receiver position. Samaj Morgan, Donovan McCulley. Michigan's going to be a tough team. But in terms of getting back to that bar year in and year out, that's a different type of game that's played with the best in the business. Go look at Ohio State. Go look at Oregon. I typically say go look at Georgia. We'll talk about that later. But go look at those two teams specifically and how they reload every year. And I think Michigan is a super high floor team. But how do you go from competing for a national championship once every couple years to we're in the mix every year? Bryce Underwood, really, really bright future. Excited for him. So there you have it. The good. John Napier, Oklahoma, a team to be feared. The schedule sets up nice. Like I said, you're on the road at Temple. You have Auburn at home. You have Kent State, and then you have Texas. So a real opportunity for Oklahoma to be 5-0 with a showdown with Arch Manning. All right, guys, just a reminder, you are locked in to Coop's Corner. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/Coops Petag, COOPSPETAG. You can also find me on every social imaginable, I think, outside of Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. What others are there? X, at Cooper Petagna. And I want to get the interactive thing going. If you have a question, if you have a comment, if you have feedback, positive or negative, give it to me. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you didn't like. I mean, I'm trying to make this show the best it could possibly be for your listening and viewer experience. And I said it last week. We're going to zoom out. We're going to go 30,000 feet, and then we're going to zoom in and talk about the player stuff and the stuff that you find interesting for your school, your program, going into a matchup week in and week out. How about the bad? How about the bad? Billy the Kid Napier, man. Great guy, by the way. But this is bad. I mean, if you're a Florida fan, this is week 4. We talked about Brian Kelly last week, how going into Death Valley, or Death Valley Jr., as he calls it, was a must-win for LSU. Billy Napier ended the season the right way for Florida, where you thought, all right, they're just going to grab the baton and they're going to keep this momentum going. Opened up with a impressive victory against Long Island University, of what you would expect the standard of that game to be for the Florida Gators. Then has South Florida at home, coming off a top 25 victory against Boise State. And Alex Golish, just behind the scenes, has just been doing a really good job with this program. But this is not a team to overlook, especially given Billy Napier's history at Florida. He's 20-20. That is the worst record of any head coach in the last 40 years through 40 games in Gainesville. And you have LSU this week. We're going to talk about that game a little bit. I mean, you had to have this one. You got the quarterback. This is year 4. I put it out on X last week. They only took 8 players in the transfer portal. That was second least in the SEC. Billy Napier wants to be a player development program. He's put a lot of work into this roster. Goes out in the portal, adds a couple nice pieces. J. Michael Sturdivant being one of those guys. They played 13 freshmen versus Long Island, and I get it's Long Island, but that's the emphasis on the player development program. This is like Clemson light here, but an SEC version of it, because they're going to be a little bit more aggressive in the portal. And here I am thinking, man, Florida's getting ready to put it together. They're longer, they're athletic in the trenches. Really like what they have at the second level. Secondary, good enough, in my opinion. Offensively, they have experience. Slaughter, Barber, the guard spots, there's competition. Got enough in the run game and the receivers. Trey Wilson, I get it's a durability thing. NFL talent. Vernell Brown, I get he's a freshman. NFL talent. J. Michael Sturdivant, I get it. He's on his 3rd school. NFL talent. Cornerback, legit. So it's all there for Florida right now. And South Florida comes in. Red zone woes for Florida. And as the game started to get tight, the Gators just started to, it was self-inflicted wounds. Couple big plays, points come off the board in the red zone, and absolutely horrible lack of judgment by the defensive lineman that transferred from Baylor on the last drive to allow South Florida to get into field goal range. And it's just like it's day one stuff. Now it's not the roster. Now it's the critical errors at critical times, of which every Florida fan has already seen enough. You don't have that margin of error to lose this type of game. And if you do, you're hanging on a prayer, and now you got to go on the road at night to Death Valley and go see Brian Kelly and Garrett Nussmeier. By the way, are coming off a really lackluster 23-7 victory against Louisiana Tech. So they're going to have something a little bit extra. But personally, yeah, disappointing for Florida because this is a team that I think really outside of executing on the field has pressed a lot of the right buttons. And here we are, year 4, week 2, group of 5 opponent, all due respect to South Florida. You got the quarterback, you got the roster the way you want, and it's the same old thing. So how long can Sean Strickland, the AD at Florida, the brass there in Gainesville, continue to go along with Billy Napier? I'll read this schedule to you, and you tell me. At Baton Rouge, at Miami, Texas at home, at Texas A&M, Mississippi State, who just beat top 15 Arizona State, Georgia, Kentucky, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Florida State. I mean, that's brutal. So you got to take advantage of what's in front of you. Billy Napier, Florida, obviously a huge missed opportunity for the Gators. And now they got to go play with their hair on fire against LSU, and they got to turn it up, which, let me say this, they are capable of doing it. So if you're an LSU fan and you're looking at Florida and said, oh, they just lost to South Florida, don't make that mistake. All right, guys, like I said, quick reminder, you're locked into Coop's Corner. We're doing this all season, every week. I'm just going to try to consume as much football as possible in a healthy way. Obviously, I need to be a father and a husband first. But I will do it within those confines. And then I will report back to you on Sunday, and we'll have some good conversation. So we have the good, John Napier. We have the bad, Billy Napier. Now it's time for the ugly. Mike Gundy wanted to talk some smack, indirectly, directly, whatever you want to call it, to Dan Lanning. Made the comments about a $40 million NIL budget for Oregon, which I think is insane. I could be wrong. Maybe they are dropping $40 million, but I highly doubt it. I would assume Oregon is at the tippy top of NIL spending in college football. If I had to ballpark it, $25 million. I'm not a reporter. I don't know. But just based on conversations that I've had with guys that do this for a living, that's where I'd put it. Dan Lanning is earning himself a reputation for the guy you don't like, just stay out of the way. Don't give him anything. We saw it last year, 2 years ago, whenever it was, with Colorado. They gave him plenty of indirect bulletin board material. And when Lanning heard those comments from Mike Gundy, he said, yeah, we're spending because we want to win. I wouldn't want to be part of a program that doesn't spend. I don't get it when people think it's a slight. Oh, they spend 20. Yeah, we want to win. It's above board. I'm doing my job. I'm at a place that's invested. What do you want me to tell you? So how'd Lanning respond? Gave Oklahoma State an absolute ass whooping. 69-3. This is a Power 4 team in the Big 12 of a very respectable program. And I kept hearing it up before the game, like, hey, these guys are going to run wild, which I expected them to do. But it was personal. 631 yards of offense, 319 through the air, 312 rushing. Oklahoma State was held to 211 yards. If that's not sending a message, I don't know what is. And that's not just a message to Oklahoma State. That's a message to everybody. Yeah, we spend. And we're going to make every cent count. Come find out for yourself. Kirk Herbstreit, who, by the way, I don't think gets enough respect for the unbelievable job that he does from bouncing from College game day to the primetime game to another game the next day like he did last week with LSU Clemson, then going to North Carolina, TCU on Monday night. The ability to retain that much information, consume it, spit it back out to you, where we get to learn from it. It's crazy. But he made a good point. He said, nobody's talking about these guys. It's like, yeah, I get it. Last year they had Dylan Gabriel, 3rd-round pick, Cleveland Browns, one of the most experienced quarterbacks, all of college football. They had the roster. They had to replace a lot up front. But, I mean, they're one of the most well-put-together operations in all of college football in every facet. Talent identification, talent acquisition. It's not about just putting the board together. It's about executing, getting those guys in your building, and then developing those players. And you can say whatever you want about the almighty dollar. I get it. It's the game that's being played. But Isaiah World wants to be developed at Oregon. Emmanuel Pregnon wants to be developed at Oregon. Alex Harkey, Bear Alexander, Teron Johnson, Dylan Thieneman. Destination program for a lot of different reasons. Got it cooking. Wasn't supposed to be about Oregon. It's about Oklahoma State. $69-3, man. That's unacceptable. You can't have that. All right. That's it for Good, Bad, Ugly. Great Good, Bad, Ugly this week. Fires me up. Hope you're fired up listening wherever you are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts. Got a lot of people asking, hey, is it on Apple? Yeah, it's on Apple. It's on Spotify too. Subscribe to both. Leave a review. Leave a comment. I got one review right now. I know it's from one of my buddies on there. It felt awfully personal. I appreciate it anyway. But hey, we're also fired up for week 3. Week 3 of college football. We got some good things going on there, man. Coach, let me fire you up. Let's talk a little Texas A&M, Notre Dame. Notre Dame will host Texas A&M 6:30 in South Bend. They're a 6.5-point favorite. And I know, there's some people on here. They're not just trying to up their football knowledge, so they can impress their wife and their friends. I know there's some people on here that are trying to get a little inside information on which way to bet. So let's talk about it. Texas A&M 2-0, Notre Dame 0-1, coming off a loss to Miami. A&M coming off a win against Utah State. A&M's a really, really intriguing team. Can't really figure them out. You watch them offensively, what they did this past weekend against Utah State, 554 total yards. They lose Noah Thomas, their big X receiver in the transfer portal and their leading receiver last year, to Georgia. And you're looking at Texas A&M and you're like, man, I really am curious of like what this is going to look like, especially from a Marcel Reed passing game, Colin Klein standpoint. Go out, get Casey Concepcion in the transfer portal. They get Mario Craver from Mississippi State. You have Ashton Bethel-Roman there as well. You have former 5-star Terry Bussey. They're still trying to kind of figure out ways to manufacture touches for him, which I completely understand. And then you have this offensive line, which is an experienced one. Trey Zune at left tackle, Chase Basanis at guard, Nabu at center, Armaj Reed-Adams, one of my favorite offensive linemen in the entire SEC, and Demetrius Crownover at right tackle. You look at this team on paper and you're like, all right, these guys have all the ingredients to be a factor in the SEC, but it all hinges offensively on Marcel Reed. And if you look at Texas A&M last week, I think their average depth of target from Marcel Reed was over 11 yards. And this passing game has shown the ability, albeit against inferior opponents, to be very explosive. But the thing that it's going to come down to for A&M and for Notre Dame is that from a passing game standpoint, A&M to me feels you have to defend them in two ways. One, the vertical passing game. The other part is you have to tackle them in space. These guys are a run after catch operation. They do not have a ton of size, but they have a lot of dynamic ability after the catch. KC Concepcion might as well be a running back with the ball in his hands. Mario Craver averaged over 20 yards per reception last year at Mississippi State, and he's off again to the races. Had over 100 yards this past week. I believe over 100 yards the week before. And then Bussey can do some things. And then you have Ashton Bethel-Roman as well, who is another vertical threat. So what does that look like for Notre Dame, who I think is one of the best coached secondaries in the country? And then the question for me for Texas A&M offensively is watching Notre Dame against Miami. Miami, in that big physical offensive line, had a lot of success running between the tackles. And Notre Dame is a little bit light in the interior. So can you lean on Le'Veon Moss? Can you lean on Reuben Owens? And can your offensive line play to its ability? You watch Miami just leans on you. Malinois, Inez Cooper, Brockermeyer, Okunlola did a phenomenal job in that game. Kind of wore down Notre Dame at different parts of that matchup. But for Texas A&M, this is a defense in Notre Dame. They got a lot of speed and they got a lot of athleticism. I think you almost play into their hands a little bit with that RPO offense if you're trying to get to the edge. Drake Bowen, Jaden Osbury, Billy Amuasa, Jalen Sneed, Boubacar Traore. Notre Dame's well put together in their front seven. So if you're an attack, one part of it, it would be the middle of that defense. And that's going to be really interesting. The other part that I find fascinating where Notre Dame showed a little bit of vulnerability against Miami in week one was they really didn't have an answer for Malachi Toney, young Malachi Toney. You don't know, he's 17, by the way. But his short area quickness, his change of direction, his ability to create consistent separation in and out of breaks, especially at the top of the route, gave Notre Dame some fits. And they threw the kitchen sink at him once they realized, like, hey, this kid's a problem. He got the Leonard Moore treatment. He got the Christian Gray treatment. He got the Carson Hobbs treatment, which at nickel for Carson Hobbs, that's what's going to be interesting to me. I would assume Leonard Moore will be on KC Concepcion duty. and Christian Gray or Carson Hobbs will have Mario Craver. But if you're Notre Dame, can you limit that big play? And we saw it a couple times in week 1 with Miami. They were able to get downfield and make a couple plays, and those are game changers. And A&M wants to be explosive there. Flip side of it, CJ Carr, Notre Dame, you just got to love the poise that he showed week 1 in that matchup. And this is a guy, man, like he plays confident, and I thought we saw the most mature version of that confidence in week 1, ironically. And as he gets more and more confident, I think he's going to have to toe the line between that confidence as a quarterback and that arrogance as a quarterback. And I'm not talking about that personality between the ears. I'm talking about that on-field confidence, on-field arrogance. And for Notre Dame, this is a team that I thought in the second half, Mike Denbrock obviously wanted to establish Jeremiah Love, but you have one of the best running back rooms in the country. I love Jadarian Price, and I love Jeremiah Love. And if there's one thing on tape that has showed up with Texas A&M's defense, make them tackle in space. Jeremiah Love is a very difficult guy to open field tackle. Jadarian Price is very shifty, one cut, go. Really good contact balance. And that offensive line establish some identity. And I think they can do that against this very, very aggressive Texas A&M front, who's very talented. I mean, you look at A&M, and I don't know if this take is out there. They play so fast, and they play so downhill. But they're susceptible to giving up the big play. And if I'm CJ Carr and Mike Denbrock, Will Lee, who's arguably their best corner, Des Ricks, Tyreek Chappell, like if you really want to attack A&M, I think there's some opportunities to do that with this group in the secondary. And Malachi Fields is going to be a guy that's going to be a really tough matchup because of his size and because of his dependability at the catch point, quite honestly. And then Greathouse, to me, this is a good matchup to get him going. Same with Jordan Faison. I like this matchup for Notre Dame. But A&M, man, I mean, talented. They fly around. But like I said, susceptible to getting the doors blown off of them at times. And I'm not talking like defense as a whole, but when you play fast and you play with that type of temperament and you play with that type of pursuit, sometimes you're going to be a little bit vulnerable. And that happens. 6.5 in South Bend. Notre Dame, to me, is a very well-coached team, a team that's going to get better and better and better. I love Mike Denbrock. Defense played well enough, in my opinion, week 1. We'll see, man. I think they're going to get better. I like Notre Dame to cover at home against Texas A&M. Let's talk some SEC. Here's a game that I'm really kind of intrigued by. Tennessee hosting Georgia, 2:30. And the Dogs, the top 3 team in the country. Tennessee, a team that was really kind of hard for me personally to put my finger on coming into the season, just with everything that transpired. Really, from a psychological standpoint, you lose your quarterback. That plays out in the public court of opinion. The timing of it, not great. Go out, grab Joey Aguilar, coming off a not great season at Appalachian State. Experience. But when you turned him on tape last year, there wasn't a ton to get really excited about. And through 2 weeks, you look at Tennessee offensively, there's a lot to like. And Aguilar's played well. He's playing in a very open, free system. And we've always talked about that being a quarterback-friendly system. But Josh Heupel's a good coach, man. You got to give him a lot of credit. But the thing that's really stood out to me with Tennessee through 2 weeks, granted, only one of those weeks being against a Power 4 opponent. But I really like the way that the offensive line played against Syracuse. Lance Hurd, former 5-star, has his moments. Wendell Moe, who they bring over from Arizona in the transfer portal. Sam Pendleton, who they bring over from Notre Dame. Tennessee only took 7 guys in the transfer portal. They netted 4 to 5 starters. You want to talk about aim small, miss small, program development, same thing that we talked about with Florida. And these were guys in Wendell Moe that I had a second-tier PFA grade on. Sam Pendleton, I had a late day 3 grade on. Still a young guy. And Tennessee goes out, identifies them as fits. Same with Aguilar. Same with Star Thomas, who they bring over from Duke. And these guys are contributing early. Colton Hood, defensive side, same thing. So if you're Tennessee, like that's what a front office does. There's what everybody else sees, and then there's what we see in the building. And in the building, they say, hey, yeah, we know this guy fits us. Both on the field and then from a temperament standpoint, from an experience production standpoint, we know he has what it takes to come in here and help our team win. That's impressive, man. That's impressive roster building. And in this case, it's impressive roster tweaking. Because Tennessee got dealt a really unfortunate hand. And here they are 2 weeks into the season. And I'm not saying people didn't expect them to be 2-0, but the way that they have done it is that you're looking at this team a little bit differently than I think a lot of people would have expected. And you're looking at Mike Matthews, you're looking at Chris Brazzell, you're looking at Braylon Staley. And Joey Aguilar, that deep ball, and then that run game with Deshaun Bishop, Peyton Lewis, Star Thomas. They can throw 3 different guys at you that all bring something a little bit different. And it just looks like Tennessee. And it didn't look like that last year. Now, in this matchup, let's talk about Georgia's defense, because Georgia's defense is what you would expect under Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann, man. I mean, whew. I know they were a little bit worried about that edge depth. Gabe Harris, Quintavious Johnson has played early. Ella Madozie, they're still trying to ramp up, coming over from West Point. Game seems a little bit big for him right now, but it's what you would expect. Ajanye. And then Glenn Schumann does a really good job throwing a lot of different looks because he has an abundance of riches at the second level between Raylan Wilson, Justin Williams, Christopher Jones, Chris Cole, Dog, and putting those guys in pass rush situations. They can come at you a lot of different ways. And then the big boys in the middle, Jordan Hall, Kristen Miller. Maybe it's not Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, but Kristen Miller is pretty darn good. Now, Elijah Griffin might be one of those guys. I mean, you can tell from just watching Austin Peay, from the size, athleticism, the get off, and the power. Hey, who's that number 90? That guy's different. Like it, everybody can see that. Love him at backer. I didn't even mention C.J. Allen. Might be the best one. And then corner's kind of interesting. Daniel Harris, Ellis Robinson had a pick last week. Number 2 player, same year as DJ Lagway. and then still trying to figure out that safety spot that Kyron Jones occupied last week. And I think a lot of people thought that was going to be Ja'Cory Thomas or Adrian Maddox or Zion Branch. So Georgia's defense is Georgia's defense. They set the standard of what it's supposed to look like from a height, weight, speed, depth, attacking standpoint. And we all saw what these guys did against Texas last year on the road. They're every bit as capable. But I do think those matchups, if you're looking for those matchups, like I like Tennessee's offensive line. I think the matchups are going to be, hey, what shakes loose with that Tennessee receiving core? And the other part of this is, how many points do you have to get to if you're Tennessee to feel comfortable about this game while you're at home? Georgia's offense, I tweeted about a little bit earlier today, watching against Austin Peay. I'll just give you one word. I was discouraged watching Georgia's offense. I didn't know what to expect. I talked about that 11 yards average depth of target for Colin Klein and Marcel Reed. I tweeted about it earlier today about what this offense looks like under Mike Bobo. What's it look like under Gunnar Stockton? His average depth of target last week was 3.6 yards. 87% of his passing yards came after the catch. And I'm bringing this up because it's something that I thought was not a concern, but a limitation when I evaluated Stockton out of high school. The majority of his production came from within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. And it was a lot of yards after catch. And you look at Georgia, where did they feel like they had to get better last year? Where did they feel like they failed Carson Beck? Receiver. So what do? They go out, they grab Noah Thomas from Texas A&M. They get Zachariah Branch from USC. And they sign a really, really talented Talon Taylor. And you have Colby Young coming back, and you have a plethora of different tight ends that you can mix in the passing game between Oscar Delp, Lawson Lucky, Ethan Barber, Jaden Riddell. So for me, it was, all right, Georgia's obviously leaning on this run game that they're trying to get going between Nate Frazier, Dwight Phillips, Chauncey Bowens. They're trying to get that MO back. But to me, it just, nothing about what they showed last week gave me any confidence about them being able to build upon any type of foundation that they have in the vertical passing game. The ability to stretch the defense with Gunnar Stockton consistently. And they had the players to do it. That's why they went out and they got all conference caliber players in Noah Thomas and Zachariah Branch. And Zachariah Branch specifically can be the difference in this Mike Bobo offense. If this is the way that they do want to operate, that's going to have to be the guy that steps up. And that make you miss ability is going to be relied upon a lot. So you couple the lack of ability to attack the intermediate to deep part of the field with an offensive line right now that's still trying to figure things out. You lose 5-star Juan Gass in the first week of the season. We'll see if he plays against Tennessee. The reviews out of Athens is they love this guy. Could arguably be the best player on their offensive line already, and he started one game. They think he's day one, hence the reason he was ranked where he was. goes out with an injury first week of the season against Marshall. And from left to right, this is how it looks. You got Monroe Freeling, left tackle, Michael Morris, left guard, center Drew Bobo. We saw Michael Uwini, at right guard. And then it's Ernest Green. But this past week, we saw a handful of guys work at right tackle, Bo Hewley being one of those guys. Jazeer Jackson being another one of those guys, guy that played basketball not too long ago. And then at right guard, still trying to figure things out. Played Dontrell Glover, a freshman. I mean, and the thing is, when you watch the tape, the right side of the line is a legitimate concern for me. And how are they going to hold up against this front seven in Tennessee? Nathan Robinson, Joshua Josephs, the big guys in the middle. That, to me, is the question mark. So, can you run consistently on Saturday in Knoxville? And if you can't run, what's this going to look like? What are your answers going to be? And this might sound like a hot take, and it's early, and Georgia could very well go into Knoxville and win that game, and I wouldn't be shocked. Obviously very talented. But in my opinion, I would have liked to have seen them bring in another established arm this offseason. And I get it. I get it. Gunnar Stockton came in, helped lead you to an SEC championship under difficult circumstances. Uneven play in the college football playoffs against Notre Dame. And it kind of feels like it was an emotional thing. It's like, all right, this is our guy. Like, this is our guy. We rallied around him. And it's like, all right, but in that moment, you have to take a step back and look at it objectively, even to the point where you can say, hey, I feel strongly about this guy, but to not bring in another established arm to drive the competition, and people say, oh, yeah, Ryan Puglisi. It's not what I'm talking about. What about a Fernando Mendoza? Or Bo Prabula? I mean, there's other guys out there that can navigate this Mike Bobo offense that can keep you ahead of the chains and make you more effective from a complementary standpoint. And you have all that money sunk into that receiver room. Are you going to get a proper return on investment? Those are my questions for Georgia. So we'll see. All right, guys, just a reminder, make sure to like and subscribe on the Cooper Petagna YouTube channel. I'm bringing you content as much as I can once a week. This podcast/show will drop every Monday. Just talking some ball. And we're going to add in some other things as well. Coach is doing a great job getting the video cuts on there, doing some fun shorts, as the kids call it, on TikTok and Instagram and stuff like that. So trying to get it rolling. We're at 35 subscribers right now. I had a goal to get to 25 by the end of this week. At 35, man. Life's good. All right, last game we're going to preview here. LSU, Florida, 6:30, Baton Rouge. LSU's 6.5-point favorite. I mentioned it earlier in the show. Coming off a pretty lackluster performance against Louisiana Tech, where the biggest issue was LSU's inability to consistently run the football. And this goes back to last year, and it was maybe the biggest question mark going in to that Clemson game against a very vaunted front seven. And against Louisiana Tech, it looks like they took a step back. Now, first drive for LSU offensively, Braylon Moore, the highly touted center from Virginia Tech, the guy that makes it go, gets rolled up on. Looks like he's dealing with a high ankle sprain. More than likely, from what I understand, will not be a go against Florida. Still waiting on the MRI. Information still to be determined, I believe. But that is the early consensus at this point. They look just different without him out there. DJ Chester comes in. He's played some ball. You saw him in a reserve role at left tackle. Look completely out of place against Clemson. Comes in against Louisiana Tech, and I'm not just pinning this on him, but LSU really struggled to get any type of push against Louisiana Tech. And if LSU is going to have the season that people think that they are capable of, they have to be able to consistently have the threat of the running game. And if you make Garrett Nussmeier one-dimensional, you're going to see a lot of the performances that you saw from him last year. 26-41. That was the stat line against Louisiana Tech. 237, a touchdown and an INT. And it looked a little off. It looked off from a timing standpoint. It looked off from an execution standpoint. But as I told a friend of mine, the hardest part of the job sometimes is managing the emotions week to week that goes into the college football season. And it's easy to look at this game in a vacuum and say, hey, they were favored by 39 points. They should have covered the spread. And instead, it's a little bit tighter than everybody would like it to be in the fourth quarter. And we saw that with Penn State and FIU. We saw that with Clemson, who obviously matched up with LSU. With Troy, who was down in that game 16-0 at one point. You see it all over college football. And if you play with your food too much, you end up looking like Billy Napier in Florida. So LSU, especially this week, going up against a very talented front seven in Florida, is going to have to find a way to get their legs under them and produce some type of threat in the running game. And if Braylon Moore can't go, then you're going to have to find a way to do some different things to get some different guys involved to maybe show Florida some things that they haven't seen through the first 2 weeks of the season. Xavier Thomas is a big part of that. Harlan Berry can be a big part of that. Did some nice things against Louisiana Tech. And then Caden Durham, I mean, you have to continue to put him in positions to be successful. And I thought the wrinkles that they added against Clemson in week 1, it was like they had a whole offseason to think about it. Fast forward a week, reality sets in a little bit, and you say, all right, we got a group of 5 opponent. We're just going to be able to run the ball down their throats. It's not the case. LSU has not been able to do that. They weren't able to do that with Will Campbell and Emory Jones. So they're not going to be able to do that with this unit, especially without their starting center. So that's going to be a unit that's going to have to ramp it up big time next week. And LSU offensively is going to have to ramp it up. That defense is locked in. They got a bunch of dudes out there that patrol themselves. Whit Weeks wants it. Zach Weeks wants it. Harold Perkins wants it. Bernard Gooden wants it. Mansour Delane wants it. A.J. Hulsey wants it. That type of urgency, that's championship urgency. LSU's got to find that, reestablish that in week 3 against Florida. I know it's talked about a lot, but I'm not pressing the panic button. Sometimes these performances are things that you need to recalibrate, reset the standard, go back, understand the level of urgency that is needed to execute at a high level week in and week out. LSU's 6.5-point favorite. I think Florida's going to play them tough. I think they got all the pieces. I think DJ Lagway is in a position right now where he obviously missed all of spring. He missed a little bit of fall, and you can tell he's just getting his sea legs back under him. He's missing throws that as a freshman he didn't typically miss. And this guy is and will be one of the premier players in college football. I expect his best on Saturday night in Baton Rouge. And it's a rivalry game, man. And the Gators are backed into a corner. So, I mean, that's a dangerous team. All right. I think we started this thing at 6:30 Central Time on Sunday evening, timestamp. Started off with a nice dude stamp. And we're going to end it the right way. We're going to end it by me telling you to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave comments. Come on. Talk to me, baby. Podcast, Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts, we'll be talking some college football. All right, but I did ask on X, if you have any questions, which I will say, if you have any questions, fire them away. I'm here. I'm a sounding board. And we got 3 of them. Min So Young. What up, Minso? He says, are schools preparing for a one-time transfer window to actually happen this winter? Do you think this will help cut down on transfers? I don't know, man. I mean, to give you an honest opinion, I can't keep up with it. I think schools are like, I believe it when I see it. Wake me up when you guys figure out what the hell you're doing, because you never know what the hell you're doing. And by they, them, I mean the NCAA. So you can put however many reports out there that you're changing this and you're changing that, but until it's officially done, it's hard to game plan for. These guys got a lot of other stuff going on. Do I think it will help cut down on transfers? I wish I could give you a better answer. I don't know. I mean, I just know that time in the year is a really difficult time for programs to navigate, potentially being in conference championships or the college football playoffs, the logistics that go with that, and then being able to navigate how to retain players on your roster and acquire new ones. So will it help cut down? I don't know. I would assume yes. That's my gut instinct. But you never know. I don't know. I can't give you. That's my best answer. All right, Kanan Torres, fan of the show. Could the Aggies have 2 1,000 yards receivers this year? Kanan, appreciate you always listening, man. You're the best. I think we're going to find out a lot about what this passing game looks like against Notre Dame, and I talked about it. I mean, Adon Schuler, Devontae Smith, Hobbs, Leonard Moore, Christian Gray. I mean, those dudes are legit. And that's going to be one of the best secondaries that they face all year up there in South Bend, if not the best. So, yeah, I think we'll get a real litmus check on whether or not Concepcion, Craver could be 1,000-yard receivers at this point. I could give you 1, 2, probably not. Maybe a little rich. But we'll see. I mean, they're coming out hot out of the gate. And with that, we're going to wrap it up. Guys, I appreciate you watching / listening, as always. Longer podcast, 1 hour, 8 minutes. If you stuck with me all the way through, I appreciate it. Just me, myself, rocking the mic by myself right here on a Sunday night. Nothing else I'd love to do more. But I got to go hang with my wife and my daughter because duty calls. And that fires me up too. I'm just fired up all the time, fired up about college football. Guys, just a reminder, you can like and subscribe to Cooper Petagna YouTube channel. Got things going on over there. Got AI-generated thumbnails. Also fires me up. All the socials, Cooper Petagna, TikTok, Instagram. You got it, man. It's all there. Guys, appreciate you listening as always. We'll see you next week on Monday. Have a great week. Let's get through it. Hope you had a great NFL Sunday. Talk to you soon.